Welcome to our Startup with Ferris live stream. Thank you for tuning in. So, what's new in the world of entrepreneurship? I can tell you that many people are side hustling. As a matter of fact, 45% of working Americans are side hustling. Some people want more financial security, some do it out of immediate necessity, and others have big dreams about becoming their own bosses and becoming rich. So they're finding ways to do things on the side to get closer to achieving their dreams. Now, I have a very specific and unique take on side hustling, and we just released this video on it. So I want you to check it out after this live stream, and we'll leave the link in the description. The video is called How to Wreck Your Career, the Dark Side of Side Hustling. So I think you get the point on my point there on side hustling, but do check it out. But today we want to focus on what I've been busy with and my team for a few weeks. It's about sales and specifically about pricing, how to sell, how to close deals, how to close profitable deals. And we've been doing a lot of writing, a lot of researching, a lot of we're producing articles and videos on this topic. And this is it's really based on feedback I get from entrepreneurs. And on the average, I'm speaking with one or two entrepreneur every week, and a lot of them are struggling with sales. Now, this is not uncommon. In some of the stats I came across, at least one of them claimed that 68% of founders, 7 out of 10 in the US, they lack prior sales experience. And when I started my very first business, I definitely was part of those statistics. But without any prior sales experience, you don't know how to position yourself. You don't know how to understand the marketplace and how the competitors are positioning themselves and their products and services and how they're pricing. So something, with pricing, it's something that I struggled with a lot from my early days, early on in the very, very first business when we were selling projects for $1,000 or $2,000. And then fast forward to a few ventures later when we were selling multi-year six-figure contracts to Fortune 500. So I struggled with pricing early on. I struggled with pricing throughout the journey. And then even when we were selling to Fortune 500. And obviously the types of struggle is different, but there's no quick or easy formula that I can provide you, or anyone I think can provide, and say, here's plug that in and you get you get pricing for your business. I will do at the end of this series and next week or the week after, depending on how many questions we get. I will provide you with a grid, with a matrix to help you uh, determine what pricing model, what pricing strategy would work for your business at that specific growth phase you're in. So the struggle that entrepreneurs have is there's several struggles, but in terms of pricing, like how to package the service, how to price it, and how to price and sell a service that is a solution to a problem that these entrepreneurs are very good at solving. So there's no issue in solving the problem for the client, for your target audience, but the issue is on how to package it, and the other issue is how to price it. So this is what we've been discussing for the last few weeks. In the very first episode 2 weeks ago, I covered positioning and the unique value proposition, and how you differentiate yourself, how you stand out from the crowd, how you understand what the competitors are pitching, and how they're differentiating, how they're positioning themselves, and how you can maybe find something unique and different about your own services and your own capabilities and your own experience. So that concept of positioning and that concept of understanding the marketplace, in a way, it's a prerequisite to pricing, at least in my mind. So if people don't perceive you, you could be the most amazing accountant, the most amazing financial advisor, the most amazing um, leadership coach. But if people don't perceive you that way, it's going to be hard to charge the price that you deserve, and that hopefully you should be able to command. So that was what we covered in the first part. In the second part of the series, the second episode, we talked about how to sell when you're just starting out. So initially, Everything here about positioning and sales and the hourly rate at the beginning of the business. If you don't have sales, you will not have a business. So what I covered last week was this one. I would summarize it in maybe 4 words. You just you just gotta sell. And I provided specific strategies, techniques on how to get the first few sales. So that is all what we covered to date. Today, I will cover very specific pricing models. And for each model, the pros, their pros, the model, the pros of that model, the cons of that model, as well as examples, and then when to use each model. And then my goal at the end of the day is really to help you. I'm not a this pricing guru. I'm not gonna tell you like I don't have a magic wand. Go ahead, like here's how you price it. No, my job is more of a guide. I want to help you choose the right pricing model for your own business that is appropriate and fitting for that stage that you're in. So when you first start, there's one strategy. After maybe you have 10 clients under your belt, you have 20, $30,000 of revenue. There's something else you can do. And then as you grow and as you scale, there are different types of strategies. But before we get into it, a few housekeeping items. One, please continue to send us your questions. You can do you can do so in the comments below in whichever platform you're on, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, or YouTube, or you can just use the form we have in the description. It's a Google form. Just click on the link and send us the questions. You can also direct message me if it's something very maybe specific. You don't want to make it public. I'll be more than happy to look into these questions and answer them on the next live stream, or I can email you directly. And obviously, we keep all of that confidential. So that's number one. Number two, and that's my ask, is whether you're watching or listening live or tuning in later, uh, I'd love to hear from you about on this content that we are sharing with you. Um, what if is it helping, is it not, what else is missing? Do you need more specifics, you need more strategies, you need more practical tips? So do let me know what you think about this content, good or bad. It doesn't matter. I want to hear it from you, because my role again is to help entrepreneurs avoid the mistakes that I made over the years and help you succeed and help you build and grow and scale to 7 and 8 figures. All right, so that is all the housekeeping stuff I had. Let's now jump in. So, three pricing models I'll cover today. One is the hourly or the time-based pricing. The second is going to be project-based, and the third will be value-based. And there are more pricing models we'll cover next week. So, hourly pricing is the first model, and it's pretty straightforward. So, you decide on a rate um, per hour, and then you go to your clients and you bill the clients according to the hours you work. So if your hourly rate is $125 and you work for a client for 10 hours, that's 1250, right? So that's pretty straightforward. Now, if you had a job where you were not paid a fixed salary, you know how this works. So let's just go over an example here. You have, and again, for those of you who maybe are already, for those of you attending, and then maybe they already have a business and they've tried different things. They tried value-based pricing and it didn't work. They tried project-based pricing, it didn't work, or they're struggling with it. Maybe you haven't tried hourly. So I do want to talk about the pros and cons and when to use it, because I don't think you have to stick with one pricing model all the time. Even in the same phase of your growth, you can use different models. But let's just go through an example first. So let's say you provide technical writing services and you're contacted by a lead who who you think you can help. They like you. They've seen maybe your past work. They've checked in your LinkedIn profile, and they're ready for a quote. Now, the issue here is they're not sure how much help they need. They have this product. They want you to write some technical specs around it and the benefits of the product and the features and all of that good stuff. You don't know what's involved because you haven't done a lot of those projects yet, and they don't know what's involved either. So this is a perfect example where you can just set a specific hourly rate, and then you can say, we'll do this hourly. So I'm going to put in 20 hours and it'll be 20 times my hourly rate. Now, the good thing about this approach is that, uh, so instead of you risking a bad calculation, so let's say in this example, you say it's going to be 20 hours and it ended up taking 40 hours, so you're on the hook for 20 additional hours, and it's really hard to go back and ask for more money in general in sales. So the approach, when things are not very well defined, this hourly approach works well. And and it's sort of clean and simple, right? Like, they agree to your hourly rate. You provide at the end of the week, at the end of the month, the number of hours. They, everything's pre agreed upon. You bill them, they pay you, done, right? And it's very familiar, I think, to a lot of people, this whole approach of hourly pricing, because lawyers, accountants, other professionals, they charge that way. Even if you go now on Upwork, you go on GLG, you go on a lot of these expert and creative type services. A lot of people just bill by the hour, so a lot of people are used to this. So the pros, as I sort of alluded to earlier, this approach of hourly or time based pricing is straightforward. It's easy to calculate. Not a whole lot of complications. Now, it does provide flexibility as well. In terms of the pros, it does provide flexibility for both the consultant and the client, because sometimes, and it's happened to me when we were charging hourly, you agree with the client. Let's say you want to do 20 hours a month for the next 2-3 months. Let's say they get busy, the client is busy, and they can't provide you all the details you need, and you might end up only meeting with them twice and only spending 10 hours, not 20. So on their end, they know that they're only going to pay you for the time that you spend, which is 10. So it does provide flexibility for both the consultant and the client. Is that it's if you don't do the work, you don't have obligations to the client, right? It's when they request the work. So that's those are on the pro side. And there are cons associated with this. Uh, think of what I just said about the flexibility. So with the flexibility that you get, there's also uncertainty, because you don't know. Like, the client said, yeah, let's do 10 to 20 hours a month. Like, you don't know, is it going to be 10? Is it going to be 20? So that obviously impacts your revenue, your revenue plans, your sales plans. The other thing is, you might be you might not be factoring everything that's involved. So, for example, if you have, for example, some overhead, if you have some things you have to do on your own, those things uh, might not be easy to go and build a client for. The client is going to expect you to do that part of your own domain knowledge. Like, if you're going to do some research on a specific thing you're doing for the client, is that something you build them for, or is it something you need to know because it's your own domain? So there's a bit of a issue there, or a concern that you might not involve, or you might not factor in everything that's involved. The other thing here, and this is for folks who haven't sold hourly before, it's not just about having a Google sheet with, here's today's date and how many hours, and here's the category, and producing a total at the end of the month, or using, there's a whole lot of software providers, very inexpensive, where you can do time tracking. So that's not the technology that they use is not a problem. The issue is the discipline and the know how to track your time, because you respond to an email. Maybe the client calls you and they spend 7 minutes. So are you going to do like lawyers and bill in 6-minute increments? Lawyers do that. I'm not exaggerating, which most people don't like, but that's how they do it. So there is a bit of getting used to tracking all the time you spend on the client, and then also uh, um, having, again, the software is not that big of a deal, but you got to have a system, and then you have to document. Okay, so today I worked on, if you're a technical writer, in our example earlier, I wrote about the features of this product. Tomorrow I wrote the draft for the benefits of the product, of that product. So that's something to keep in mind if you're going that route, is you gotta really write down and track the time you spend. And now, it also, the level of tracking, whether it's sort of high level or detailed, it's going to depend on the client. Some clients are very detail oriented, and they like to see a lot of details. Some clients, they just want to see sort of big picture, like sort of I worked this number of hours on this category of tasks. So again, talk to the client, make sure the level of details you provide is sufficient for their own comfort. Which brings me to the next point. The next con is this approach, this hourly approach. It does invite scrutiny. So clients sometimes might look at this stuff and say, "What do you mean you spent 3 hours on writing the features of this product in that technical writing services?" They might say like, "Why did it take you 2 hours instead of one?" Right. So it does invite that level of scrutiny. And again, everything here is above water. You shouldn't be messing with the hours. So you should be, should be professional and honest and bill only what you provide. But people might have different perceptions of how long it takes to do certain things. So keep that in mind. So you should be able to back up what you've done with, with the deliverable or with the things that you spend time on. The other con here is that, and again, I'm listing all these cons, is I'm not saying this is not a good approach. Time-based billing is a solid approach. It works well. I'm listing the cons so you're aware of them, and that you when you sell hourly, you address all these cons. So again, I'm not saying hourly or this time-based pricing is bad. A lot of people use it and use it effectively. But those of us who are just starting their businesses, they might run into these cons, and that's why I am highlighting. The other thing is here, your ability to sell in terms of revenue. It's going to, your pay basically is capped both by the number of hours you work, and then obviously the client's hesitation to pay a high hourly rate. So some consultants, including coaches and others, they struggle to get beyond like maybe 175, 200, 250, $300 per hour. So you're capped by two things: by the hourly rate, because this is the formula, the number of hours times the hourly rate. So you can only put so much time in a week, and you can only charge so much for your service per hour. So those things also to keep in mind, especially when we start to evaluate value-based project pricing and then project-based pricing. You'll see the benefits there when we talk about this point. And the last point here on the cause is you're really selling the hours, which is fine. It's not encouraging, this approach is not encouraging the value-based pricing. In value-based pricing, in general, you can get more bang for the buck. You can get more, you can spend less time, but get charged a whole lot more, get to charge a whole lot more. So I don't want you to, again, to be stuck in this time-based billing, because I think value project based and value based could do really well in certain circumstances. But what I want you to know is that if you're asking like, when do I use this hourly based pricing, I would say it's ideal for short term projects when the scope of the work is unclear and there's just too many unknowns and too many variables. So if you go in and say, I will do I will do the technical writing, the specs for your product for $10,000, and I'll do it in let's say 6 weeks. You go in and there's nothing for you to you have to discover everything on your own. It's going to take you like 200 hours. It's going to take you double the amount of time. So your effective hourly rate is going to be like $30. You lost your shirt basically on this project because there were so many variables. There are no details. There's no support from the client. There's no previous documentation, no prior documentation. There nothing online about the specific product. So again, if there are a lot of unknowns around about what you're delivering, I think hourly will protect you. Now, you can also, like for example, I have some folks in our company, some partners, some contractors I work with, and some I've been working with for years in this venture and in previous ventures. So I know they're subject matter experts. I love them. They like us. We work together very well. But the type of work fluctuates from month to month. So instead of having like a fixed retainer or like a project based, we say, I pay you X dollars an hour, and it's going to be anywhere from 10 to 15. So I typically give a range that to my contractors who bill me hourly. So this way they can plan their month, well, or the quarter well, and then I know what my expenses will be. And then communication between the vendor and the customer is always important. So if I know I'm going to be traveling, I'm going to have less time, let's say in the month of May or June, I will tell my contractor to that, hey, I won't have as much work for you. So you can also ask, now you're the contractor, you're the service provider, you can also communicate with your client about if your arrangement is hourly and you think it's going to fluctuate from month to month, just communicate with them and encourage them to let you know about how busy their schedule is, how much they can give you support so you can do the work that you're signing up for. So that is all on hourly based pricing. Let's see if we have one question. I know it came in from Patricio. And Patricio, thank you so much for leaving that question that came through LinkedIn. And the question was, let me see right here. Yeah. What is your approach that came in last week? What is your approach to determining willingness to pay when introducing a new product or service? So you're not sure, you're introducing a new service or a new product, and you want to determine, what's the approach to determine if people are willing to pay at a specific price point? Very good question. So first, Patricio, thank you so much for asking the question and being part of the community. My answer is, I'd approach this differently. So if you have an established business today, let's say our friend at the technical writing services, and let's say you want to get into marketing copy, you want to develop copy written content for marketing, not just for technical, not just about specific product. So potentially, if you already have a client base, you already have clients that you sell technical writing services for, potentially you can start nudging, or you can start approaching these clients about this new service that you have. So if the new service that you are offering and you're not sure how much to price, if it's relevant to existing client base, I would run the new offering by a subset of these customers, especially the ones who trust you and love you, and you've delighted them over the years or over the last few months, whatever, and ask them for their opinion, and get their opinion not just on pricing, but see what they think of the service. They might say, oh, you know what, this is we're getting this from these other vendors and we're totally happy, and it is maybe at half the price that you're thinking. So you'll get market feedback from your existing customers. So that's one thing. In addition, if you don't have clients, what do you do? I would definitely reach out to 5 or maybe even 10 likely buyers. Excuse me. So if you have a new service that you're launching, or a new product, I'm assuming you've done some market research, and you've identified who the buyers are going to be, the target audience, what the pain points are, what is it, what the problem that what the problem, what is the problem that you're solving. Like, you've done that some level. And if you haven't done that and you're starting a new service or launching a new product, then you should pause and really reassess the whole market research piece. And we have a video on this on the channel on vetting the idea, on market research, all that good stuff. But assuming you've done that, so you know your target audience, let's stick with the same example. Let's say you want to start a marketing, a technical writing services, and also you're thinking to start a copywriting, for marketing services. So you can start to speak to people who are likely to buy from you. Who is it going to be? Maybe website owners, marketing managers, people in charge of content in companies. And you can start to ask them, go to events, go to meetups, go on LinkedIn and ask your client, ask your network, hey, I'm about to launch a service. Here, I'm thinking to price it. What do you think? So that research will be very, very significant. Again, it might be anecdotal, but with a lot of these things, you don't have to be 100% exact. The idea is get some signals, tweak based on these signals, go out, do it, iterate, as we always say, iterate fast, iterate on the go, and you'll be in a better position to sell the service. So that would be my recommendation on getting feelers out on a new service that you're offering, or a new product that you're offering. But definitely do that research and look at competitors. Look how they're pricing. Don't follow the competitors pricing blindly. I did that in an earlier venture. Have the scars to prove it. It did not work out well. It did not work out well for us at all. So see what others are doing, what they're selling, how they're differentiating. But then at the end of the day, you have your own differentiators, and then you price accordingly. So if you can deliver faster than anyone else, you can charge more. If you can deliver at a higher quality, or you provide more, let's say your customer is using someone remote and maybe in a different country, you can provide in-person service. You can go and meet them and speak with the stakeholders. You can differentiate in so many different ways, and that's a different topic for another live stream. But the idea is, price based on research. All right. And obviously, you can, if it's a service, one last thing here is, you can offer different levels. You can do silver, gold, platinum. So if you're not sure, are people going to bite, you can have maybe like a low offer, low in terms of the features and expectations, low set of or smaller set, standard set of features, and say it's at $99, and then you can do that. Silver, gold would be, I don't know, 199, and you add more features, and then 399 for the platinum. And then you can see how the market is reacting to this. And there's a whole lot of psychology about how you do silver, gold, and platinum. We won't talk about this today, but that's the idea, is do some research, some trial and errors, and you should be able to land on a good pricing for your service or product. Good. So yeah, and again, if you're listening live or watching live, and you have done hourly based project, and you have maybe some good wins you'd like to share, or maybe some challenges you run into, or even if you're listening later, please leave us a comment. Let us know how your experience with hourly based pricing, and maybe what you've learned, and maybe what worked and what didn't work. I'd love to again hear from you, and share that knowledge, your experience, also shared with the community. So that was one. Let's go to the second pricing model, and that is project based. So project based pricing is also common. Basically, you make a detailed proposal upfront, and you say, um, here's the scope of the project, here's what I'm doing, here's the timeline, and here are the payment terms. And the client reviews it, they might negotiate, and then you go out and you get that contract signed and you deliver. So it's a project that is defined, and I hope that your proposal templates are well defined and detailed. And we might have an asset sample proposal template on what to include in the key sections of a proposal. I'll look for it after the live stream, and we'll add the link in the description. But your proposal needs to be detailed, otherwise you run into issues, which we will be covering here in a bit. So in that proposal, you're going to include your time, you're going to include what's involved, what you're delivering, and as I said, the timeline, and then the payment terms. So an example would be an IT consultant, a cybersecurity consultant. They come in and they'll tell you, we will assess your systems for any maybe hacking vulnerabilities. We will make sure that you are following best practices, and then with the assessment, we'll also we'll address the issues that we find, whether it's a process or a technology thing that they will include in the proposal. And then they'll train the team, your team, on how to apply some of these best practices. So it's pretty well defined. They've talked to you, and you're the IT consultant. You've talked to the customer. You've looked at their systems. You know how many computers they have. You know what networks they use. You know if they have cloud or maybe in-house. You know all this stuff, and you give a proposal. So that would be the project based approach. Is you tell them it's going to be $10,000, and I'll be done in a month, and then I need to meet with you once a week, and I need access to these systems, and here's what I'll deliver: a report, and I will fix issues that I will encounter, that I will identify, or I will uncover. So that is a project-based example. Apply it, same thing to coaching. If you have like leadership coaching, you can offer, I come in and do an interview and a discovery, and then I go in and I will do hourly coaching with your 3 to 5 of your managers and teach them, and then I'll provide one-on-one support to them for 3 months. Very well defined scope. So one thing here, this is sort of a side note, but a pro tip: if you're doing project based or you're thinking of doing project based, find creative ways to add an option at the end of the proposal for ongoing services. There are always, almost always, ways to add like sort of add-ons, or add-ons you can sell more, upsell, but also ongoing services, because I want you to create a nice recurring revenue stream. Again, recurring revenue, it's a topic of its own. We have a video on this, but that in your project-based proposals, you should include ways for you to offer help and value to the clients on an ongoing basis. So our friend here, the IT consultant who's selling the audit and the assessment and fixing security issues, you can offer, for example, a monthly check-in where you go and run maybe some sort of automated audit, that you have some automated software that you run, and provide the client with a report and then your commentary on the report. And he said that will be like, yeah, it'll be $450 a month. So in your project-based proposal, I would recommend find ways to add something of value to the client that will help you start getting that revenue stream going. So that is just a side note, a pro tip on adding a recurring component to your proposal. But back to the project-based approach, the pros of this approach is it offers clarity and predictability for both parties. The client has an issue, they have security, IT security issues. You're going to come in and fix those issues. And you told them it's going to be $10,000 and you'll be done in a month. Very straightforward, right? It also aligns the incentive. Another pro here is that it aligns the incentives between the consultant and the client, so that everything is done efficiently. So if you've done your homework right and you've done a detailed proposal, as I was alluding to earlier, I want you to make sure in your proposal template to have a section called client expectations. So it's not, when we sell it, people buy from people, people sell to people. It's a two-way street. It's a two-way communication thing. It's not just the client is asking to deliver and they're off the hook. You as a professional, you as a seasoned consultant, in whichever area you are in, you want to list what you're offering and what you signed up to deliver. And in the same document, I want you to include what you expect the client to do. Trust me, this will save you a whole lot of time, a whole lot of gray hair, a whole lot of ulcers, because a lot of times there's just in communication, there's a whole lot of miscommunication that happens because we're not clear on expectations. So for example, our IT consultant, if they provide the proposal and there are not a whole lot of details, they need access to systems. So if for you, especially if you're remote, to get access to system, there's a whole lot of procedures and paperwork to get you, like legal documents. If it takes you 3 weeks to get to and I've seen this before, to get access to system, say, remember that 1 month commitment that you made that I will finish the job in 1 month. If it took you 2 or 3 weeks to just get into the system to do the audit, then you have to deliver in 1 or 2 weeks. So one small line in your proposal template that says the timeline of delivery, the 1 month, will kick in or will kick off once I have access to the system. So you're setting the expectation with the client that before you have access, you can't start the work. That's one example. Another thing is, I need to meet with you, Mr. Client, and you need to get me all this information. I can't do the work without this information. So listing the type of things that you need the client to provide. You need access to maybe the specific the developers, and the developers are in different time zones. So someone from the client, and you don't have time to chase those developers. Again, that will eat up from your profit margin because that's time. So you make sure the client is responsible to give you access to the resources you need. So those are just examples on how you align how you align the incentives between you and the client, so that you deliver the project efficiently. Then they're happy, you're happy, and you collect that money at the end of the end of the deliverable. So those on the pros. I kind of mixed a little bit of a con there, but that's for you to watch out for. Now, in terms of the cons, things to look out for is when you provide a project scope and a price, you'd better be, I don't want to say 100% certain, because you can't be 100% certain, but you need to be really great at estimation what's involved, and the potential gotchas or the potential things that will come up throughout the project life cycle. So understanding, um, defining the project scope and having an accurate estimation of what's involved on your part. So again, back to our $10,000 project with the IT consultant. If they're estimating it's going to take me 100 hours, my hourly is $100, so 100 times. This is in the back of their mind. That's how they're estimating. But if this project ends up taking you 200 hours, then basically you lost sort of 50% of what you're hoping to make. Right? So that's something to keep in mind, is you have to be really good at estimation. And then the other part here is that also impacts the scope, is this concept of a scope creep. So the client wants you to build a square. Okay, this is a square, but then in your mind, in the client's mind, it's this big of a square. So things creep into, like, while you're at it, yeah, we just hired two more employees and we wanted to audit their systems, right? Well, I was thinking I was auditing 10 people. Now I'm auditing 12. So you have to watch out for scope creep. And then this goes back to the proposal template, and in terms of the client expectations. Or at one time, I think when we got burnt a few times with this scope creep, every time we got burnt with a scope creep, we added this to our template. Things not included in this scope, like very explicit, obviously in a professional and polite way, but you want to set those expectations. So if you're selling project based, if you're new to sales, if you're new to business, you will make some mistakes. That's okay. My goal is to help you reduce the mistakes, but you'll make some mistakes. So I don't want you to go into this one major area. Potentially could, I don't want to say kind of kill the business, but it could hurt a lot. Like, I remember one example where we sold, we got into web development, developing uh, platforms, not just like basic websites, for clients, and we were relying on a client, on a contractor, a company overseas. And that's, I think it was like our very first large project that we sold, and we were so excited about it, because if we complete that project, we would have a nice logo and a very complex system, and we could get a whole lot more sales, in that category. Well, unfortunately, we didn't define any details. That was our very first project. So the client kept adding. They kept adding features. Oh, I want this. Oh, yeah, I send you this website that I want you to replicate, right? So I assume that you need to have all these features, and every feature on this other website is like 20, 30 hours of work. And on our end, if we weren't doing this in house, we had someone else doing it. So we were hit by both sides. The developer we hired was charging us for the extra time that was needed, and the client wasn't happy because we did not deliver what they're looking for. So we ended up, I think it was like a $17,000 project. That was a huge number for us at the time, and I think we ended up. I think we spent $25,000 on it, because it was not counting our time. And I learned early on that you have to bend over backward for clients to keep them happy. And we did everything we could to make this client happy. At the end of the day, we came to a point where they were happy enough where we said, okay, we've done what we could. At this point, it doesn't make sense to continue. So we honor our commitment. We landed on a place where they were not too unhappy. They were not super delighted with us, but we understood that both parties, us and the client, did not do a good job in defining the requirements, and that the project took us twice as long, and we lost money on it. But at least we did not sever the relationship with this lead, and I still actually see this person every once in a while, and we smile and we shake hands, and it is what it is today. But we did not, we lost a lot of money as a business. We learned a ton from this, and every mistake we made in that project turned into a process enhancement for us. And that's something, again, we run into as new business owners. So these are the cons. It's nice when you sell a project based contract, because in a way it's predictable. You'll be getting this kind of money the client bought. But now there's some things to be aware of. So when do we use this approach? I would say it's this project-based approach is suitable for well-defined projects with clearly defined deliverables, and then defined roles and responsibilities, which I've been emphasizing throughout this section. And the deliverables, the timeline, the roles and responsibilities, they're defined, well defined for both the client and the service provider. And then for early founders, or if you are an existing business owner and very established, but you're getting into a new area, let's say you've done a lot of work in healthcare, now you're getting into finance. There might be some nuance, there might be some regulations, there might be certain things expected in this new sector that you're getting, new vertical you're getting into. So if you do things project based, you might actually get burned if you're not careful. So I would say maybe sell hourly as a general guideline, with some exceptions. As a general guideline, don't use project based early on. Do some level of hourly. And then also, if you want to go, let's say you sell to small and mid-sized businesses and you figure that out and you're doing really well, and now you're going to go into the enterprise, like Fortune 1000, Fortune 500. Getting into a new territory in general, there's just unknowns and expectations that you might not be familiar with. So that those areas you might want to be on the lookout for, and maybe do hourly, or maybe be very, very specific in the details of your proposal. Good. Again, I'd love to hear from you if you're doing project based pricing, how that's going for you, what wins you've had, what margins you were able to get, and also maybe what challenges that you are running into. Let's see what questions we have. Did you price by hour or project in your own business? So in the very first venture, when we were doing web design and then got into online marketing, we were selling project based. And I think I attended some sales training, and the coaches I learned from, they were saying this, eventually you want to get to value based pricing, and hourly. You can get like the type of margins you'd eventually want to get to in hourly pricing. So we went with project based. And again, there's just a lot of scars from those projects. The first project was $1,400. That famous website we've designed for this local restaurant is still thriving till today. It's called Athena Grill, a Greek restaurant here in Santa Clara. And then the next project was, I think we learned from that project, and the next one was my dentist. So that was a $2,000 project. So we had a pretty significant increase in pricing. We still lost money on that second project, but we got better at it. So we continued to do project based for a long time, and I think we shifted from project based to value based. We kind of avoided hourly, except certain clients were very, very adamant about buying hourly, because that's how they've used it. That's what they've used with all their contractors. So in those cases, we used hourly. So, but yeah, in general, we use project based. So my advice to you is, don't do the mistake I made. And I would say, as a general guideline, initially start so initially, the very first few clients, watch last week's episode. There's a different approach to get the very first few clients. It doesn't matter. Just, I want you to sell. I want you to get clients. It doesn't matter hourly or project based, or whatever the case might be. Even if you lose a little bit of money on the first project, that's okay, because you gotta sell. You gotta deliver. You gotta build that muscle of that confidence of that I've sold a project. I've implemented. Yes, it took me longer. Yes, it cost me more, but I delivered. I have a logo. I have a logo I can brag about. I have a client. I have a testimonial from that client. So initially, early on, it really doesn't matter. I want you to sell, but you can use some of those parameters we discussed so that you minimize any potential losses, and maybe hopefully maybe you can knock it out of the park and be profitable in your first sale. So initially, in that initial phase, just sell. Right after that, maybe after your third, fourth, fifth client, I would say hourly initially, hourly, just so you understand what's involved, and then you can move to project based. But again, there's no right or wrong answer depending on maybe certain things in your industry, in your segment, certain things that just maybe getting too competitive at an hourly, so you want to package things in a project. But again, happy to hear from the folks who are watching now or listening, watching later, on a specific scenario, and I'll be more than happy to offer a specific guideline. Good, good, good. So we are now moving to the third pricing model for today, and that'll be the last section for today. And we'll cover three more models next week. Is the third one is on value based pricing. So value based pricing is about charging based on the value your services bring to the client, not the time or effort. See, uh, we as service providers, as consultants, you want to look at how your services they benefit the client's business. So potentially, it could be boosting their revenue, it could be saving them costs, it could be something from a branding perspective, from a thought leadership perspective. So you want to, in the value based pricing, you want to connect your pricing to the value you're adding to the customer. So, and before you do that, you want to have, obviously, positioning is going to be important for you. If you're not perceived as an expert and as someone who knows what they're doing, it's going to be hard to do value based pricing because there's no perceived value. But you also want to have a conversation with the lead, with the prospect, to understand more about their environment, to understand how much they're paying other consultants, what's the impact of the issue they're having on their business. Is it something immediate? Is it something that's impacting production? Is it something that is impacting maybe their online presence? Whatever that is, it maybe they're afraid of they have an audit coming up and they need you to do like an internal audit first. So understanding the value of what you're doing to the customer is really important. So, and you can ask questions, during in your discovery process. If you watch our video on the ultimate guide to sales funnels, you'll see that there are different stages in services and consulting before you get to that closing that deal. So in that early evaluation, in that education, in that awareness and education and evaluation phases of a sales funnel, you want to be asking very specific questions to understand the value of what you're offering to the client. So that's one thing, is you have to do a bit more research and ask specific questions. And those, in a way, when you're asking these questions, it could be part of the kind of coaching process, because when clients are it's kind of not, I don't want to say like they're primed or you're framing, but when they're coach you think about the value of the engagement, they'll have more appreciation for it, and then they get much clearer on their goals. So that's something to think about. Is like, what value that is it that you're bringing to the client. So um, if let's just go through an example, and this is maybe an old parable, and some of us might have heard it. Some of us who are new to sales might not have heard it. So here's how it goes. There's a steamship breaking down at a port town in the Mississippi River. The engine just wasn't light. The operator was looking to lose a whole lot of revenue, and the clients are not happy, and this will be disastrous. So the operator, uh, he looked around that port town and quickly found that there's only one steamship mechanic, in this one area. No, it'll be miles, like another town, to find the next one. So the mechanic arrived an hour later and promptly went to work to diagnose the issue. He tried the controls, looked at the boiler, He followed the pipes and until he reached just one junction, and then he stopped. He pulled out a ball peen hammer and tapped, and the engine roared back to life. And then all the gauges showed just full power. Then the operator said, "You're a lifesaver. How much do I owe you?" And then our friendly mechanic said, $500. So the operator was flabbergasted, shocked. $500 is a lot of money. That was a lot of money then. So I won't pay you unless you give me an itemized invoice. So the mechanic pulled out a notebook and began writing. He then gave the slip to the operator. And imagine this first line on the invoice, tapping with the hammer, and then see, $1, and then knowing where to tap, $499. So that's that knowledge, that expertise. Yeah, yes, it took him maybe an hour to do this thing, but the 10,000 hours, as Malcolm Gladwell said about mastery, right? Like spending the time. So all that time that you have, all that value that you have, over the accumulated over the years, that experience, that expertise, that's what you're selling. That's what you're offering. And I think in the first episode in the series, I talked about when we had a little squirrel in my ceiling in the attic, and then I called someone. It was $800. He was willing to come in and fix the issue right away in a humane way. So if you have a there's a pain point, there's a problem, and someone can solve it for you, you'd be amazed at how much people will pay for it. So when we're matching pricing with the value, we can earn a part of the revenues or the savings in a way that your clients get, and you can strengthen the client relationships by getting that trust. You're impacting the bottom line directly, or you're helping solve a really serious issue. And I think in this way, if you think of like you have to have a really good understanding of the client's needs and their goals and the desired results, and this way you can customize your pitch, your offer, and your price to fit those needs, those goals, and those desired results. So let me give you an example, and then go over some pros and cons, and then we'll wrap up this model. We have a question from LinkedIn, and it doesn't show me here. I need to figure this out. It doesn't show who the person is on LinkedIn. But let me pause here before I get into it and ask about the retainer. So, have you ever asked for a retainer? Yes, we have. And I actually, in terms of pricing and pricing models, I will touch on retainers next week. But briefly, what I said earlier, if when you're selling a project-based um, contract, the pro tip I said is look for ways to have an add-on, something you can sell on a monthly basis, like an ongoing audit, an ongoing support, maintenance, whatever the case might be, check-in, whatever the case might be. So a retainer, there are different types of retainers. Again, I'll cover it more in more detail next week. But basically, it's part of that sales coaching I got early on in my career is that you want to build that recurring revenue model. So even that very first, or not the very first, actually, the second client we had, the dentist, and then another restaurant we sold to, we set up, like, I think it was like $100 a month, and I was so happy with $100 of a retainer, just some for basic website maintenance at the time. So you can sell as a retainer. Sometimes the retainer is fixed, like it's 250, no, $2,500 a month, a retainer, and we do X, Y, and Z. Or it could be a retainer based on a sort of like a minimum and a maximum, like for copywriting services, it'll be anywhere between $1,500 and $2,000 a month, between maybe 15 and 20 hours, right? So that would be a retainer. Everybody agrees to that, and then you can set up in the contract where it's monthly, or maybe it's a 6-month contract. You, as a service provider, you want to have longer term contracts, maybe with an option for clients to give you a 2-month notice. But yeah, retainers are great for a lot of reasons, because it gives you predictability in terms of revenue, and it does give also the client that value, um, the value that they know they're getting from you. And sometimes people ask, Like, why would, let's just do it, play it by ear, and let's just buy from, when I need you, I'll call you and I'll get the hours. And I think as a service provider, you can be professional in answering these questions. Say, yes, you can do that, but I might not be available. I might be busy with other projects. But if we set up a retainer, let's say between 15 and 20 hours a month, now I know I'm blocking this time for you, Mr. Client. So you get the question, you get the services, you get the solutions I'm offering, because I'm committing that time, for you. So retainers are great. Initially, some clients might be reluctant to do that, but it's something that definitely worked for us, and we built a nice, very nice recurring revenue stream from that early on, really early on. And I forget the name of the sales coach who taught me this. I think it was Marvin. The two sales coaches early on that I attended in-person courses for. Marvin was one of them, and now I can't remember his last name. But Marvin, if you're listening, you're still around, I appreciate what you taught me at the time. And again, thank you, Mofida, for joining these live streams. I know you're frequent community member, and I appreciate your questions. And let me know. Feel free to direct message me if you have a specific question about the scenario that you have. So back to the value based project. Value based pricing, and we talked about what it is, and now the example. So let's say you're an online consultant, you charge $5,000 to audit uh, mid-sized companies, and you audit their Google ads or Facebook ads campaigns. So that's a fixed project. You're not maintaining the ads. You're going in and doing an audit and producing a report on the issues and potential recommendations, and you charge $5,000, and you do this in 2 weeks. That's now, it might cost you, it might take you 4 hours to do this. So this is different than hourly, right? But you're going to come in. Let's say if a client is spending $20,000, here's how you do the value. If a client is spending $20,000 a month on paid ads, and you can go and have maybe a 10% improvement to their maybe lead generation or the ad spend. I mean, 10% of $20,000 a month, that you're saving them $2,000, or you're getting them maybe a few more leads, right? So it definitely justifies the $5,000 charge. Or you could be a CPA or a fractional CFO, where you charge a flat, let's say $10,000, for assessing the accounting setup. And maybe you look for compliance. Maybe the client is concerned about getting audited. So it might take you only 10 hours to do this, and you've automated your processes, and you've done things where you just can take a look at things and find issues with it, right? So those this is how you would sell value-based pricing. You're itemizing what you're delivering. Again, you have to have clear expectations, but you're not tying your time to hours. Now, the pros of this approach is, of course, we said this earlier, it reflects the impact and the value of your expertise, on and how the client is benefiting from that expertise. It also can lead to higher margins, and if the clients are seeing the benefit and the impact on their bottom line, they're going to love you for it. They're paying you a lot of money, but they're taken care of. Maybe you're just, like, people say, like, how do I differentiate? I'm telling you, a lot of people, me included, I love responsiveness. I love people, whether I'm at a restaurant or I'm looking for, like, working with a lawyer, or it doesn't matter. I just love someone who's just responsive. They answer quickly. They take care of my needs, and even if they need more time, they let me. Hey, I need more time, but I like responsiveness. I am pretty responsive in my dealings in general. I think I am. My clients might think differently. No, I think I am. So 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 I would pay more just for responsiveness. So people, I mean, there's a whole psychology of buying and selling I'm not getting into today, but if you are a consultant, a service provider, go back to that unique value proposition video that we covered 2 weeks ago, and look for, like, what differentiates you. And that's going to help you sell on the value that you offer, right? That you're responsive, you're there for the client, peace of mind. You text me, I'm there for you, right? So you can be, if you do the math, your hourly could be $500 an hour when you're selling, if you want to sort of correlate the number, the amount you sell, with the number of hours you spend. So that's that client relationship, the higher margins, they're all pros. Now the cons, again, I'm not saying the cons in the sense that there's something to avoid, but just something for you to be aware of. This level of service It requires a deep understanding of the client's business, and also the value proposition that has to be there, and very it has to resonate with the client. And then I think it does require that you are an expert. So sometimes you just it's just hard to kind of do this like right, you know, like coming, just starting a business and selling value based might be a bit difficult. So it does require you to have, some of the scars, some of the wounds, some of the things that you learn from the trenches. So that is something that you have to be aware of. So it might take you a bit of time to apply this method. And then in some situations might be really difficult to quantify the value in an accurate way. So you can't really tie what you offer to the value. So when to use this this specific pricing model, I would say, uh, whenever you think you have developed that expertise, and that could be day one, if like you let's say you just left McKinsey or PwC, and you're an established consultant, you've been there for 10 years. I mean, you have, the methodologies, the approaches, processes, you can come in and provide it a lot of value, maybe to mid-sized companies, not the enterprise. So that's something. And you can have like you could come in and do like process automation, and help them save 20% of their whatever they're producing. Like in certain circumstances, you come in and start a business and can sell based on value. But in a lot of cases, I would say start with hourly, project based, and then as you really understand the issues that clients face and the impact of those issues on their bottom line, then you can articulate that better. And then backed with your years of experience, and maybe again other clients you've helped in the past, I think you can command a price based on value that will give you amazing margins. And I know that this it sounds surreal, something like, how can I sell something like, I'm telling you, this the squirrel example. When we had a squirrel here, the guy, $800, he was going to come in like probably 15 minutes, take care of it, right? And he said, I'll do it this afternoon. It was at night. I'll do it this night. I'll come in, and $800. I mean, people would be willing to pay all kind of pricing for something that they need done. All right. Let's see what we have before we wrap up here. If you have another question. So the question is, can we, wait, yeah, right here. Can you work out an agreement where you get a percentage? So I'm assuming a percentage of the something, the what? Like if you sell online, for example, and I can get you leads, and then I can get a percentage of what what these leads buy from you, like an affiliate type. Yes. Um, I need some more details, but it is there. There's something we're covering next week called performance based pricing. So that may be what you're alluding to here. But I've seen it where my recommendation, if you're asking for high level general recommendations, and again, all these recommendations, they're always exceptions and they're always nuanced. But my recommendation is for consultants, for service providers, is to be very, very careful if you're going to tie your revenue to things that you don't have control over. So if I tie, let's give you an example. Let's say we talked about paid ads. You say, I will go in and um, I will optimize your paid ads on Google or Facebook. And let's say if the cost per lead today, if you're spending X amount of dollars and it's costing you $200 per lead, if I reduce this cost per lead to 150 from $200, give me $25. Okay. So if the cost today is $200 per lead, is the cost per lead is $200, and you commit, I'll bring this down to $150 per lead, because you can look at the campaigns, you can optimize the campaigns for them, the paid ad campaigns. Then you're saving the customer $50 for every lead, and you tell them, I will take a cut. I'll get $25 for every lead you get, at 150 or below. So you're thinking, oh, this client is getting 100 leads a month, 100 times $25. That's a lot of money, right? That's $2,500. So I would be very careful on this setup because there are factors outside of your control that could impact what's going on with this client. So, for example, let's say the leads are coming through a Facebook ad or a Google ad that's going to a website, and the client maintains that website. And let's say the website is down for a week. Guess what? You have to pause the campaign so you're not spending money recklessly driving traffic to a down website. But guess what happened? The client is not getting leads for a week. You're not getting those $25 per lead. Or let's say the client is they change their landing page or they change their pricing, and the leads are not converting. So they're not getting the leads like they used to get because they made changes on their end that you have nothing to do with and you have no control over. So I would say the general guideline is, if you're going to set up a like a performance based or like get a percentage of something, you want to make sure you have almost like 100%, not confidence but control of the environment that you're tying your revenue to. So that would be, and then we'll talk about it more next week on the performance based pricing. But I would make sure I'm very, very detailed in terms of even if you know this, even if you know the client and their friends and everything, and trust is not an issue. There's just so many variables that impact closing a deal or having. Let's say I'll give you another example, and then we'll wrap it up. If you're, like, say, I will guarantee that you will pass your audit. Let's say an ISO audit or a tax audit or a compliance, legal compliance audit. Like, I don't like guaranteeing, because there's certain things that are outside of your control. Let's say you've looked at their systems and you've identified all the issues, but the auditor just was looking at things from a different perspective, or maybe there's certain things that you were not involved in when you were doing the audit that the actual auditor found, again, outside of your control. So if you tied your compensation, your revenue to the way to a specific outcome, and you don't have control of all the factors contributing to the outcome, you might not get paid. So be very careful. I think there's a hybrid model, like maybe get a base amount. This way you cover your expenses, and then everything else will be like sort of, the icing, on the cake. If you cover your prices and get maybe some margin, and then everything else they pass the audit, you'll get a bonus. Or if they're getting their leads below 150, you get $25, but you've charged something as a baseline to cover your expenses. So that's that's my thought on this question. Again, if I didn't answer the question based on what you understood you're asking, I might have understood it differently. So let me know. Please direct message me after this, or just leave us a comment on LinkedIn or YouTube or whichever platform you're on. So again, let me know, those of you watching now or listening later, do let me know if you have tried value-based pricing. There's a lot of book, like there's the $1 Million Consultant. There's a lot of people talk about value-based and don't sell hourly. It is not as simple, not as easy as a lot of people make it sound, but it's something you can aspire to, something you can, I think, go to. I've done it. It works in some cases, not in all cases, and it is the margins are just amazing when it works. So to wrap it up for today, really, I want to thank everyone who's been with us. But we covered 3 pricing models: hourly based, project based, and value based. We touched on a couple others, the retainer and the performance based, which we will cover next week. So there's a few things we will cover next week: the tiered pricing, the retainer, the performance based, and there's one that is more of a bonus, how you productize, and potentially you can have sort of a premium, even for services. You can do like a freemium, a free, then a premium type model. I think those things will give you more options to consider when you are setting up, when you're building and growing your business, to do different pricing. And then, not sure if we'll get into it next week, but I do want to conclude the series with a matrix, with a grid, to help you decide which pricing to use, which pricing model to use in which circumstance and which scenario, in which phase of the growth of your business. So be on the lookout for that grid, and then we'll share it with the community. And that's really it for today. Don't forget to, if you're liking what you're hearing, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, leave us a comment. And obviously, if well, not very obvious because I haven't said it today, but if you're new to this channel, we also have our website, startupwithferris.com. Ferris spelled Feras. We have a daily newsletter we call the Daily Advisor. Subscribe to that newsletter. We share tips, strategies, um, very practical, pragmatic, honest advice on how to build, grow, and scale your business to 7 and 8 figures. That's my mission now, is to help you be successful and get there faster and with less mistakes and with less pain and with less scars. So hope to see you next time. And then meanwhile, let us know if you have any questions on what we've covered today. Have a good one.